Tears turn to laughter, that child long ago. My soul starts to linger, it's home I know. If you catch me daydreaming now and forever, thoughts are carrying me alone to that place we call home. Down that long road, throughout life we roam. Whenever I go to that place I know it'll always be home, home to me.
Lake Winnipeg, the 6th largest freshwater lake in Canada. Over 24,000 square kilometers of ice, 3 feet thick. It is an erratic and unpredictable force. In summer, a quick change of wind can whip these shallow waters into a furious frenzy within minutes. It is an abundant source of life and can be a cruel cause of death.
On a promising winter morning, March 15th, 1941, Thorstein Eriksson left his home on Hecla Island to lift his nets. By afternoon, a blizzard brought freezing temperatures and blowing snow, forcing him to turn back. He became confused. Rather than follow the instincts of his young dogs, he turned them east, away from the island, a quarter-mile from home. They traveled 18 miles, until half a mile from Elk Island, he turned them back to the west. 2 days after he left, he was found, frozen to death, his dogs around him, still alive, standing vigil. He was only a half mile from his home on Hecla Island.
This week, on Sketches of Our Town, we'll try to find out what it was about these forbidding shores that beckoned Icelanders to settle here.
The dormant winter harbor of Gimly. These whitefish boats proudly display the heritage of the men who work them. Their ancestors, driven from their home shores of Iceland by a combination of overpopulation and natural disasters, including volcanic eruptions, came to North America looking to establish an independent colony, a new Iceland. Some settled in Ontario, others in Wisconsin, but neither site was ideal. In 1875, the two settlements selected a committee of community leaders to investigate land advertised by the Canadian government in the Red River Valley. Sigtryggur Jónsson, the father of New Iceland, led the group to Winnipeg, but a plague of locusts turned him north along the southwest shores of Lake Winnipeg, where it was unlikely locusts would ever appear. The committee liked what they saw.
Besides the obvious lure of the lake, they felt that agricultural pursuits would be successful here. The forests of poplar and birch could be easily cleared, and the land cultivated within a couple of years of settlement. The quality of the soil, the abundance of wild game, timber, native berries, made up a glowing prospectus, which they presented to their countrymen in Ontario and Wisconsin.
After a long journey through the Great Lakes, overland to the Red River, and onto Lake Winnipeg, the settlers landed at Willow Point on October 21st, 1875. They stopped some 40 miles short of their chosen destination, the White Mud River, because of the impending winter, a winter they were not prepared for. Nelson Gerard, an historian, lives on the shore of Lake Winnipeg, not far from the settlers' original destination. He is the author of the Icelandic River Saga, an account of the new Iceland settlement.
Arrangements had been made with 2 or 3 men who were supposed to hay for the cattle that the group brought with them. And this, of course, would have supplied milk for the settlers and the children in particular. But these men had taken other employment, and as a result, there was no hay, there were no shelters, and the settlers were caught at the beginning of winter, and of course had to do some quick thinking and quick building.
They moved their belongings from the inhospitable Willow Point and established the town of Gimly, meaning fire shelter. During that first winter, 35 of some 160 people died of scurvy, mostly children. In the following years, the Icelanders endured even more severe hardships. Smallpox nearly wiped out the colony. They were constantly subject to the whims of nature, but endure they did.
For a while it looked like New Iceland was a lost cause, and a lot of people really felt that the dream they had envisioned was not going to turn out. By 1880, 1881, probably 80% of the original families who had settled New Iceland had left. Many of them had lost hope. About 20% did persevere, and they demonstrated that New Iceland was a viable settlement. They lived quite comfortably. They had to work hard, but they had all the resources that they really needed, and they were independent. So those people who came from Iceland during the 1880s turned to New Iceland as a place to get a start, and really they revived the dream of a new Iceland.
This statue of a proud Viking stands as a tribute to the survival of that dream. The roots of a hardy Icelandic character can be sensed throughout town. A visit to H.P. Turgeson, General Merchant, established 90 years ago, is a good indication of the Icelandic connection. It is here that we meet Lara Turgeson, who for 84 years has lived in Gimli and is the matriarch of 4 generations of Turgesons. And she's still got a pretty good sales pitch.
You know, our Icelandic sweaters, the hand knits. Yeah, well, this is, of course, made in hand done in Iceland. It fits your wife very well, I'm sure.
What was Gimli like when you were a young girl, a teenager?
We skated on the ice all over as far as Camp Morton and back. You know, of course, Camp Morton, yeah, I guess it was there. It wasn't called Camp Morton then. And we played hockey with the boys, and sometimes we'd get a ride with his name was Ellie. He had a box wagon, sort of, and with a team of horses, and it was sleigh bells, and it was so much fun in the wintertime.
How did you cope with the winter? It was pretty cold. Winters are pretty rough here.
Oh, we never seemed to be very cold. We wore moccasins. I can remember knitting one sweater. That was when I was in grade 8, I think. I wore that sweater day in and day out, all winter.
You taught some school, too.
See, in 1924, that was the year. I was through grade 11, and they gave you a permit. And I taught out at, 11 miles out the country here. My brother, who was 2 years younger than I was, used to drive me on a little horse and buggy, you know, for the every Sunday night. And then he'd pick me up again like Friday.
So when did you meet your husband?
I think I fell in love with my husband as a youngster, because I would see a lot of him making ice cream in the back of the store.
While people like the Turgeson family established Gimli as a trading center, most of the residents of New Iceland remained suppliers of raw goods. And the colony was no longer an Icelandic domain. When the province of Manitoba expanded in 1897, immigrants of various cultures, mostly Slavs, began to arrive.
The people of New Iceland saw being part of Manitoba as actually an answer to a lot of their problems. Public education was one thing to be gained. Municipal government and, of course, provincial funding was another advantage. So there was no real opposition to New Iceland's becoming a part of Manitoba.
Did the community of Ukrainians and the community of Icelanders get along pretty well?
Well, I suppose we felt maybe, perhaps there was that feeling that we were a little bit, we knew a little more, perhaps, at first.
There's always a little
We didn't
rivalry
have-
between
well, they
communities
couldn't
like
speak. They couldn't speak the language.
that. Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't until their children became, educated and so on that some learned the language very fast. But you see, when I was teaching out there, the women couldn't speak to me in English.
Yeah.
The daughters who were at home would speak, and the children.
Be a hard time for
So
them,
you
wouldn't
see, it was difficult for them at first.
Difficult has always meant challenge to the people of this place. And a frozen lake could still mean abundance. The communities of the New Iceland area have one thing in common with most towns in Western Canada: an abundance of young boys with dreams of playing professional hockey. For these Gimly youngsters, the lake is the Montreal Forum or Maple Leaf Gardens. For Baldwin Snorrison and Joe Bristow, it is a place of business. On a frosty morning at Frog Bay, just south of Pine Dock, 22 below, the old bombardier waits to descend onto the lake where Baldy and Joe will lift nets they set 6 days ago. It's an improvement on dog teams, but this lifestyle requires fortitude. Icelanders like Baldy and Joe learn to fish under the ice from natives. After picking up an ice shack and a snowmobile left on the ice the day before, the pair will travel 8 miles to reach the first net. Prior to snow machines, ice fishing was a long, difficult procedure. Chisels were used to hack through the ice. The catch was freighted to shore by horse and sleigh. In later years, trucks were tied together behind snowplows. As a young man, Ted Christensen was already familiar with working the lake. Fishing since the age of 12, the 77-year-old is one of Gimli's most colorful characters, something you might guess by looking at his home.
Tell me about fishing in those early days. What kind of boats did you use?
Well, we'll say in the summer fishing, which was on the north end of the lake, after about 1890 or something, it gradually moved further north. And this was done with two-masted wooden sailboats, about 28 feet in length.
I can't imagine setting nets from a sailboat.
You've got to be fast.
You just didn't stop the boat.
No. When it was calm sometimes, or the tugs, there was always 1 or 2 steam tugs at every station. And they would assist the boats that were supposed to, if it was dead calm, to try and bring them home again. But they were scattered all over and they never found all of them. And also in a storm. And they would haul them back into port, you see. And Dad told me many stories. I wasn't on sailboat very much. I just very little on the sailboat. They had started motorboats when I was. But he said that sometimes they were, shipping irons, when it's calm, there was no wind. And they had oak oars, which were, I think, 12 feet long. And 2 men would row. And he said one time we rowed all night to get back to the station after working all day lifting nets. And when we were finished to dress our fish, it was time to go back out again. This happened many times.
Tough guys.
Well, yeah, you can be tough if you have to survive.
Yeah. Tell me about life at the fish station. What was it like to live there?
You stayed you stayed at the station. There were pickup stations where there were bunkhouse, cookhouses, and commissary, and dressing, what we call dressing sheds, where you dress the fish, ice houses, coolers, And the packet or the freight boat would come twice a week and take the finished product to Salt Creek. Most of it went to Salt Creek, and one fish company was in Gimly. In the old days, they were all in one bunkhouse, except the cooks and the shore hands. They were in another. And 9 o'clock, everybody was sound asleep. We didn't even have a radio, nothing. And you worked 7 days a week. There was.
And you got up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, every morning except Sundays. And on Sundays, you didn't have to get up till 6 o'clock, and that was called just, sleeping in. This was all summer. But, and of course the fare wasn't, there was plenty to eat, but it wasn't very appetizing at most places, although in some places it was pretty good.
A lot of fish?
No, that's one thing you never got much of.
Yeah.
Twice a week, I think, you got fish. I was never a fish eater, and I didn't look forward to it. Yet my son, who came in here now, he's fished all his life, and he can eat fish every day. My dad could eat cooked fish for breakfast. I never ate the damn thing.
How times have changed. Ted Christensen might think fishing today is luxurious. You be the judge. Baldy and Joe have reached their first net attached to a stake. The first step is drilling through the ice and attaching a line to the net.
Water's a little bit slippery this morning.
They then move on to the next stake, to which the other end of the net is fixed. After the hole is drilled and the net secured, the bombardier is positioned to create a lee, shelter from the cutting wind. Now they're ready to haul in the net. Using 80-yard lengths, they hope to catch pickerel and sauger. Anything else in the net, like tullaby, is not worth keeping and is discarded.
It's the nicest. I love this fishery. I love winter fishing. It's you're out in the fresh air and you're your own boss. And it's healthy.
Once the net is clear and the fish stacked in a tub, the snowmobile returns to the first hole and retrieves the pole line. Slowly, the net is drawn back onto the ice. Depending on the amount of fish caught, the whole process can take up to an hour and is repeated over and over, day in and day out. It's one tough way to make a living. This stretch of shoreline from Gimli north to Hecla Island has challenged those who settled here for over a century, but they have survived and prospered. Although the lake has drawn people of many ethnic backgrounds over the years, it was the Icelanders who first found a way to meet the challenge.
There is something about Icelandic people that makes them proud and tough. What's that?
I can't say that we're any different, except they don't give up and they're tough. Well, I know the fishermen have to be tough.
They had to be tough when they first came here, or Gimli wouldn't be here.
That's true. Do you think they're ambitious people? They don't want to fail? I'm not sure just what it would be. It's the Viking in them, I suppose.
Icelanders weren't the only people. Look what the poor Slavs got. They got the ridges with the stone in and everything else. They were worse off than we were. And this was immigrants all over the world, didn't it? All over.
But you also picked one of the toughest
places
Oh, yeah, I guess
to
they
make a
did.
living from.
I often told that.
You know, commercial fishermen in Manitoba,
Yeah.
it doesn't really sound very promising.
I often told them that you people had the chance to be in the Niagara Peninsula, probably the richest real estate in Canada, and you didn't have sense enough to be there.
Anywhere from a half a box to a box to a net is good fishing. Like a half a tub or a tub full like this.
Men like Baldy Snorrison and Joe Bristow perpetuate the tradition established by their ancestors. They are fueling a culture that is truly unique, so that coming generations will retain a heritage to be proud of.
Never thought we got this many jumbos today.
When the ice breaks up in spring, the whitefish boats will again be in the water, leaving Gimli for the northern regions of the lake. Baldy Snorrison will be aboard one of them. Ted Christensen will probably wish he was too.
These deserted streets of winter may look like any other prairie town, but there is a spirit born on the wind here. A spirit of myth and heroic legend. A pride in a culture that has been maintained and celebrated under the harshest of circumstances. Communities like Gimly, that have clung to the west shore of Lake Winnipeg for over 100 years, have established a sense of permanence, a sense of home, to a people who had for so long searched for just that.
To that place we call